The darkness was pierced by a single, insistent vibration, shattering the stillness of the night. A primal instinct compelled me to reach for the device, my fingers closing around it like a lifeline. The screen flickered to life, casting an eerie glow on the surrounding shadows. A message notification flashed, accompanied by a sense of foreboding. The sender's number was unknown, adding to the unease that settled in the pit of my stomach. The words, "Emergency message for you. Don't ignore," seemed to leap off the screen, imbuing me with a growing sense of dread. With a deep breath, I opened the message, and what I saw next defied all logic and reason. A cryptic message and a blurry image attachment hung in the digital ether, waiting to unravel a tangled web of secrets and lies. The image on my screen seemed like a jumbled mess at first glance, but as I focused, the details began to take shape. A street bathed in the faint glow of streetlights, a row of parked cars lining the curb, and a lone figure standing beneath a lamppost. My heart skipped a beat as I realized the figure was me. The timestamp on the photo read, 2 minutes ago, and a shiver ran down my spine. Someone had snapped a picture of me just outside my apartment building, and they were now taunting me with the evidence. I leapt out of bed, dashing to the window to scan the deserted street below, but there was no sign of anyone. The silence was oppressive, punctuated only by the sound of my own ragged breathing. Another message arrived, the phone vibrating in my hand like a live wire. "You're in danger. Leave now." The words danced on the screen, fueling my growing unease. This couldn't be a prank. The photo and timestamp told a different story. I began to move, grabbing my shoes and essentials, my mind racing with possibilities. But before I could take another step, the door handle rattled ominously. Someone was on the other side, and they weren't bothering to knock. The door shuddered as the handle turned, the sound echoing through the room like a crack of thunder on a stormy night. Fear gripped my heart, squeezing tight like a vice. This wasn't a joke, someone was trying to break in. The phone buzzed again, the screen lighting up like a beacon in the darkness. The message read, the words searing into my brain like a branding iron. I felt like a rabbit caught in the headlights, paralyzed with fear. The door creaked open, the sound like a scream in the silence. A gloved hand pushed through the gap, followed by a figure cloaked in shadows. My mind was a jumble of panic, my thoughts racing like a runaway train. I snatched up the flashlight, my fingers wrapping around it like a lifeline. As the figure took another step forward, the phone buzzed once more. The message urged, the words piercing the fog of fear that surrounded me. My heart was racing, my breath coming in short gasps. The figure loomed larger, its presence filling the room like a dark specter. I knew I had to act, but my legs felt like lead, refusing to budge. The figure's features were shrouded in darkness, making it impossible to discern any defining characteristics. Yet, I could sense its gaze fixed intently on me, like a predator sizing up its prey. My phone buzzed again, and I instinctively glanced down at the screen. The message was cryptic, but it was enough to spark a surge of adrenaline. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to trust the mysterious stranger on the other end of the line. They seemed to know more about the situation than I did, and I had no choice but to follow their guidance. With a burst of speed, I launched myself toward the window, deliberately veering away from the front door. It was a calculated risk, but I had to trust that my unknown benefactor knew what they were doing. The window slid open with a smooth glide, and I hoisted myself over the sill, dropping down into the night. The cool air enveloped me like a shroud, and I landed with a soft thud on the grass below. For a moment, I froze, listening intently for any signs of pursuit. The silence was oppressive, punctuated only by the distant hum of crickets. I knew I couldn't stay here for long, I had to keep moving. With a deep breath, I took off into a sprint, the darkness swallowing me whole. Adrenaline surged through my veins as I reacted on instinct, my body propelled forward by a primal urge to escape. The sound of the door crashing open echoed through the room, followed by the low, commanding tone of a voice. "Stop." I didn't hesitate. My legs pumped furiously as I sprinted toward the window, yanking it open with a burst of strength. The chill of the night air slapped me in the face, a stark contrast to the fear-induced heat coursing through my body. The drop to the ground seemed insurmountable, a 3-story plunge that would surely end in injury. Yet, I had no choice. The footsteps closed in, each step a countdown to capture. The voice growled, a warning laced with menace. I steeled myself for the leap, my heart racing with anticipation. Just as I was about to swing my leg over the sill, a cold, unforgiving hand clamped around my wrist, halting my escape. The grip was like a vice, unyielding and powerful. I knew I was caught, at least for the moment. The strength of my captor was evident, and I wondered if resistance would be futile. I struggled to break free, but the grip on my arm only intensified, drawing me back into the darkness. The voice was low and menacing, its calmness unnerving. I strained to see the speaker's face, but the shadows obscured his features, leaving only my heart pounded in my chest, threatening to burst free. "Introduce yourself?" I spat, attempting to conceal the tremble in my voice. The stranger didn't respond, his silence more unsettling than any answer could be. Instead, he pulled me closer, his words dripping with an air of inevitability. His tone brooking no argument. I shook my head violently, my pulse racing with fear. "No way," I retorted, but my defiance was short-lived. His fingers dug deeper into my skin, a warning that I couldn't ignore. "They want you to be happy," he said, his tone detached. A shiver ran down my spine as I processed his words. "Who called you?" I demanded, my voice firm despite the fear that gripped me. For a moment, he hesitated, and in that pause, I sensed the complexity of the situation. There were others involved, puppeteers pulling the strings from behind the scenes. Another vibration jolted my hand, a reminder of the mysterious sender still watching, still guiding. A choice loomed before me, one that could determine my fate. Would I trust the stranger on the phone, or would I succumb to the danger that stood before me? The decision was mine, and mine alone. A fleeting glimpse of the message sent a chill coursing through my veins. The words seared into my mind. Panic set in as the stranger's grip dragged me forward. I realized with stark clarity that this wasn't a mere abduction, it was a death sentence. The clock was ticking, and I had mere moments to choose between compliance and defiance. The screen blurred as the man's grasp constricted around my wrist, his fingers like a vice. Time seemed to slow, and the world narrowed to a single, urgent question. Would I surrender to fate, or fight for survival? The message's ominous warning ignited a fire within me, fueling a desperate bid for survival. Every fiber of my being screamed for action, to break free, to flee, to resist with every ounce of strength I possessed. The stranger's intentions were clear. He was a predator, and I was his prey. I snarled, wrenching my arm in a futile attempt to escape. But he wouldn't release his grip. Instead, he pulled me closer, his movements calculated and deliberate. His voice is a chilling whisper that sends shivers down my spine. "I do not agree with your decision." I gritted my teeth, my heart racing with defiance. I retorted, my voice low and menacing. I was determined to resist, to fight with every last breath in my body. I wouldn't go quietly into the night. I'd struggle, I'd scream, I'd claw and bite, anything to avoid the fate that awaited me. The stakes were high, and I was ready to bet everything on my survival. My eyes locked onto the stranger, searching for any weakness, any opening that might allow me to escape. My mind racing, I calculated my chances, weighing the risks and benefits of each possible move. I knew I had to act fast, before he overpowered me completely. Panic clawed at my chest, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps. I was running on instinct, driven by a primal urge to survive. The mysterious messages had become my only hope, a lifeline tossed into the void. I had to trust them, had to believe that whoever was on the other end knew something I didn't. My mind was a whirlwind of fear and adrenaline as I launched myself into action. No time for thought, no room for hesitation. I stomped down on his foot with every ounce of strength I possessed, feeling a jolt of satisfaction as he grunted in pain. The brief loosening of his grip was all I needed. I wrenched myself free, my fingers closing around the cool glass of the paperweight like a vice. The world narrowed to a single, primal focus: escape. I swung the paperweight with all my might, the sound of shattering glass and the man's curse echoing through the room like a death knell. I didn't look back, didn't dare. I ran, my feet pounding the floor in a frantic rhythm as I bolted out of the apartment. The hallway blurred around me, a tunnel of fear and adrenaline. I sprinted toward the emergency stairwell, my heart racing with anticipation. But then, I heard it, the sound of footsteps, heavy and deliberate, coming from below. My heart sank, my mind racing with dread. More were coming, and I was trapped. The stairwell loomed before me, a cold and unforgiving expanse of steel and concrete. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Every step echoed through the stairwell, a reminder that I was not alone. I could feel eyes on me, the weight of unknown dangers pressing down. My senses were on high alert, my heart pounding in my chest. I was running for my life, and I wouldn't stop until I was safe. But for now, safety seemed like a distant dream, a fleeting illusion that might vanish at any moment. I pushed on, driven by a desperate determination to survive. The final stretch loomed before me, a desperate bid for escape. I sprinted up the last flights, my heart racing with anticipation. The rooftop door beckoned, a potential haven or a dead end. I grasped the handle, my palm closing around it like a vice, and pulled with every ounce of strength I possessed. The door refused to budge, its stubborn silence a cruel taunt. Locked. The word echoed in my mind like a death knell. Panic set in, a cold sweat breaking out on my skin as the footsteps drew closer. I spun around, my back slamming against the door as the first figures emerged from the shadows below. 2, then more, their faces obscured by the dim light. My phone buzzed, a lifeline in the darkness. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. One last message, one final chance. My eyes flicked down, my fingers white-knuckling the phone. The words flashed on the screen. Look up. I raised my gaze, and that's when I saw it, a metal ladder bolted to the wall, ascending into the unknown. A glimmer of hope flickered to life within me. I shoved my phone into my pocket, grasped the ladder's cold rungs, and began to climb, my arms and legs pumping in a desperate bid for freedom. The void yawned beneath me, but I didn't look down. I kept climbing, driven by a singular focus,